thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. IFPRI is an international agricultural research center, and so I like to think of this room as the greenhouse. It's where food policy ideas are nurtured and tested. So it's a privilege and a pleasure to be here with you today. And I'm giving, I would say, an NGO perspective, not the NGO perspective. For those of you who are familiar with the non-government world, it's a very diverse set of actors ranging from the big international organizations like the one I work for to very small community-based organizations and national organizations. And although I would point out, we think of, there's sort of a north-south split. Actually, the largest NGO in the world is BRAC, and Mahbub Hossein will be at the next seminar here from the world's largest NGO. So I want to start out by saying that I think this work by IFPRI, and Agnes, I'm going to strike terror in your heart here. This stands for the body of work, not just this very outdated publication. But I think it's been very influential on NGOs. Typically, even a large NGO like Oxfam doesn't have the research capacity that IFPRI does. I mean, I think we have about 25 researchers worldwide throughout the Oxfam Confederation, so we really depend on a research institute like IFPRI to do the heavy lifting. And I'd say not only this, but the updated version of this, Women Still the Key to Food Security, which I think originally was going to be called Cherchez la Femme, a lot of influence. And as Agnes pointed out, the influence is not just on how we as NGOs think about the role of women in food security, the role of women in agriculture, but it influences programs, particularly findings such as these. So programming should target women because they invest their new income in the well-being of children, or equal access to resources for women in agriculture leads to production gains. So here you have a programming guidance from Action contre la faim, or Action Against Hunger, and it cites a number of IFPRI publications, not just Women the Key to Food Security. I think also we find, there's this image of NGOs, people think about the WTO conference in 2001. We like to mount barricades and throw bricks and things like that. But actually, NGOs do partner with the CGIAR, and here's an example. This is the Cultivating Equality program, and it cites some of the work on women, agriculture, and climate change that Agnes and Claudia have worked on. And CARE, as you can see, and Food Tank are among the partners in this initiative. So it's not just the old Women the Key to Food Security study, but actually the Women's Empowerment in Agriculture Index has also had some influence in the NGO world. And so again, if you think of IFPRI as an international agricultural research center, so here's a derived, essentially derived product from the plant breeding activity here at IFPRI. This is Women's Collective Action, Unlocking the Potential of Agricultural Markets by my colleague Sally Baden. This is an Oxfam research report. So we have used the WEAI in some of our own work. I think another function, ongoing function that IFPRI serves for us in the NGO world is the killing of zombie fats. And this is an ongoing struggle. If you do some web searching, you will find, first of all, this business about the percentage of the world's land that women own, 1%, 2%, some other low percentage, but this so-called fact repeats itself, and so we have looked to IFPRI and, in the case of Oxfam, the Washington Post, to correct us on this. We received a number of Pinocchios, even though we stopped using it some time ago. There's also this even older and more even more undead zombie, about 70% of all the poor people in the world are women, which suggests that there aren't very many poor men. And, well, anyway, leave that one alone. And finally, Agnes has brought this up already. Gender doesn't just mean women, and the tendency is, oh, I've done my gender analysis, I talked about women. Well, sometimes that leads to bad programming. For example, in Haiti, with the outbreak of cholera, there was an assumption that women would be more affected than men, and in fact, in some parts of the country, it was exactly the other way around. If you simply say, well, okay, so we should program for women, rather than actually doing a gender analysis, you get bad programs. Now, I did say that the image of NGOs is that we're, storming the barricades and criticizing everybody, so I will talk a little bit about criticisms, too. So first of all, this first is an impact assessment done here at IFPRI of the early work on gender and intra-household issues by Cecile Jackson, and one of the things she said was, although there was a lot of work done in Bangladesh, there wasn't much uptake, that is, gender and intra-household aspects of food security, that there was not much uptake by the NGO. So that's looking back a while. This next bullet is an academic criticism, but I think there are those in the NGO world who would like it. So the work is grounded in neoclassical economics, and it doesn't explore the grounding of the economy in social institutions as, say, an analysis by Veblen. The theory of the leisure class, he's an old economist, but has had something of a revival. Now, if you saw the presentation Agnes gave, I think some of these very points are coming out, so things have evolved. And then on the Progressa evaluation, there was some criticism from NGOs, including, I was working at IFPRI at the time, but from Oxfam, that, well, so you're using this randomized control trial, so some people are getting benefits and some people aren't, and that's not right, it's exploitative, it's unethical, etc. I think also the criticism is made of conditional cash transfers, that they actually are disempowering because it means women have to spend all their time taking the kids for examinations and to school, and so actually, particularly as economic actors, they're disempowered. And then the last 2 points really aren't about gender, but because conditional cash transfers tend to be targeted to women. So you're putting a condition on something that's a right, therefore you're violating a right, or a lot of debate about whether programs should be, well, if you watched the Democratic debate last night, should programs be universal or should they be targeted, and that discussion goes on. So I thank you.